Aristocratic family, campus, wearing books, group pets, micro-mysterious fantasy, new book for newcomers. Before wearing the book, she was a genius scholar named Academician Shen who ate national food and was nurtured by the country. She is cold-hearted and rarely talks to others. Her unique intelligence makes her stand above everyone from birth. After wearing the book, she was exposed to her background, laughed at by everyone in the wealthy circle, but still favored by her family as a playboy and daughter. This should have been a malicious female supporting script. A girl who is pampered and lives recklessly is arranged to sleep forever on the day of reaching adulthood at the age of 18. From then on, she was just a passerby living in the memories of her loved and pampered family. She was covered in coldness, calm and rational, knowledgeable about human relationships but not worldly wise. People hurt her with rumors, but she ignored them indifferently. Others view her with prejudice, and she remains calm. In front of her family, she gradually shed all the ice and snow, becoming soft and gentle. That person, who comes from a prominent background but is indifferent and ethereal, like the 9 heavenly gods. He watched as time jumped and the world moved forward without any logic. He saw her in the true colors of this false world. Seeing her Ling ran in this chaotic world, with all kinds of social norms, she is pure and distinct. They are unreasonable beings in this world. She is the only one in this world, guiding him towards the direction of his heart. Through the turmoil of the world, meeting you is just right. Keywords of the novel. After wearing a book, I don't want to become a group favorite female lead without pop-ups. After wearing a book, I don't want to become a group favorite female lead. Download the full text. After wearing a book, I don't want to become a group favorite female lead. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. 1000 Gold Exchange. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. 1000 Gold Exchange, Shocking Explosion. Have you heard about it? The Shen and An families used to hold the wrong child. I have also heard that it is said that the Shen family member and Miss An were held the wrong way when they were just born. The person from the Shen family. TSK. Someone sighed and made an inexplicable tisk-tisk sound. Some people also gloated, the little princess of the Shen family, who has been lawless for so many years, is not from the Shen family's bloodline. Now, it's not easy for Shenqing to fall. The An family is not from the Shen family, Miss An is in front of Zhu Yu. If she returns to the An family, how long can she still be arrogant? There is no one in the upper-class circle of the entire capital city who doesn't know. Shenqing Luo, the little princess of the Shen family, is spoiled and lawless. She is so arrogant that she can provoke anyone, and there is support from the Shen and by families behind her, so no one dares to offend her. If Shenqing Luo is someone who has skills, it's just that he is someone who is not skilled and is used to causing trouble. What can't be done? Even if what he wants is in someone else's hands, he must snatch it. So, Shenqing fell into the upper echelons of the capital city. Although no one dared to offend him, which of the descendants of the aristocratic family was not arrogant? A person with no ability, they are afraid of the forces behind her and can only hold her, but behind her, who doesn't expect her to fall to pieces. Shenqing Luo has always been regarded as a cancer by the children of major families in the wealthy circles of the capital city. And Miss An Moroa, on the other hand, is a completely opposite existence to Shenqing Luo. An Moroa has been a child from another family since childhood. She is good-looking and polite, with a good family background and excellent academic performance. She has held a solo concert at a young age and is still a disciple of the country's chief pianist. However, she is not arrogant at all, but hard-working and humble. An Moroa has been a model of talented women from childhood to adulthood, and no matter which family's children, they cannot deny An Moroa's excellence. Compared to Shenqing Luo, it is simply a matter of clouds and mud. The gossip of wealthy families is not lacking in good deeds. But the two protagonists of this gossip incident never showed any reaction. They certainly wouldn't have learned about being held wrong from outsiders, as they had learned about it from their families as early as a month ago. Although Enmoroa was surprised, she didn't react much. After all, although the En family couldn't match the Shen family's background, they were not inferior. The fact that Shen Qingluo was favored by the Shen family, of course, Enmoroa was not unaware. Therefore, when she heard that she was the daughter of the Shen family, she couldn't help but be tempted for a moment. But in the future, both Shen and En families remained silent about exchanging their daughters back, and this matter was also suppressed by Enmoroa in her heart. Now that this matter has suddenly been exposed, Enmoroa has a rare glimmer of anticipation in her heart. The other protagonist of the gossip incident had no knowledge of the gossip outside. She was nestled in the villa and had not appeared for half a month. Of course, even if she knew, she didn't care at all. After all, she is not the original Shen Qingluo. The matter still needs to start when Shen Qingluo knows that he is not of the Shen family bloodline. When Shen Qingluo was told by her mother that she was not her biological daughter, she was shocked and afraid. However, Shen's mother, Bai Tang, also promised that she would always be the daughter of the Shen family. Furthermore, later on, the Shen family had no intention of replacing her with Enmoroa, and Shen Qingluo let go of his worries and anxieties. So, when Shen Qingluo found out that he was not of the Shen family bloodline, he did not actually feel any change. However, although Shen Qingluo has been favored by both the Shen and Bai families from childhood to adulthood, her own brother, from childhood to adulthood, mostly disliked her. It was Shen Qingcheng, the second brother of Shen Qingluo. Before her identity was exposed, she was siblings of the same parents as her, but even so, he hated her so much. Not to mention, he was even more angry when he saw Shen Qingluo knowing that he was not a biological member of the Shen family and still able to rely on the Shen family's misconduct with peace of mind. Half a month ago, he accused Shen Qing of occupying the magpie's nest and sarcastically mocked her, saying that if it weren't for her, his own sister Enmoroa would have returned to the Shen family. Although Shen Qingluo has been disliked by him since childhood, it is still the first time he has heard such hurtful words. Especially, although she appears to have remained unchanged, she is constantly afraid that Enmoroa will come back. She is not a fool, knowing the difference between herself and Enmoroa. Therefore, she thought to herself that if Enmoroa returned to the Shen family, her parents, grandparents, and others would definitely not like her anymore. And Anja will not like herself, who is not as good as Enmoroa. She has been trying her best to behave the same as before, but she is always afraid that this beautiful foam will be punctured. When she was really pierced, Shen Qingluo was hit even harder than she had initially imagined. So, after that, the original Shen Qingluo drank heavily and woke up to become the current Shen Qingluo. In fact, Shen Qingluo's role should have ended here, but a completely different Shen Qingluo came to this world. A world that she knows, a book. El boss, help me. Help me. Shen Qingluo, whose thoughts were a bit drifting, was called back to her senses by the sound in her earphones. On the computer screen, the character of the person seeking help is being surrounded by a group of people, while Shen Qingluo's character is not far away. She controls her character with thunderous movements, and her subordinates move quickly to rescue the person. The exclamation in my ear was, He quickly won the game with his teammates, but Shen Qingluo didn't continue. Putting the phone aside, Shen Qingluo felt a bit bored. She has been in this world for over half a month now. Apart from eating, sleeping, playing games, and organizing the memories of the original owner and her own understanding of the plot, she also answered a few inexplicable phone calls. After that, Shen Qingluo never paid attention to any calls again. And to prevent phone harassment, she also created a mini-program that intercepted all a series of incoming calls. I completely don't know, she disappeared for over half a month, and many people are going crazy. The apartment she is currently living in was bought by the former Shen Qingluo with his saved pocket money. Only Shenqing Luo himself knows about this place, so even if others go crazy looking for it, no one expected that Shenqing Luo would be wronged in a small apartment. After half a month of almost isolated life, she felt it was necessary to go out for a walk. Wearing casual clothes casually, Shenqing put a hat on her head, took her phone, and went out. Press the elevator, and when the elevator door opens, there is already someone inside. She just noticed that the elevator came down from her upstairs. However, she is not interested in the residents upstairs. She walked into the elevator and didn't see the person inside. When she saw her, her eyebrows twitched slightly. What's going on? How could this child from the Shen family be here? However, it was obvious that Shenqing Luo did not notice that anyone she accidentally met in the elevator could recognize her. She did not recognize him, nor did she even look up at him. The elevator reached the first floor, and Shenqing pressed down on the brim of her hat and walked out of the elevator. After leaving the community, she felt a bit confused for a moment. She actually has nowhere to go. The fox friends and dog friends of the original owner must not be found, and she did not want to continue following the trajectory of her past life. Now that she has come to this world, this is her body, so naturally, she needs to live her own life. As for returning to the Shen family or going to the Bai family, I'm sorry, she didn't think about it. She has memories of Shenqing Luo, but she does not inherit the emotions of the original owner, the resentment and sadness, she does not. Shenqing Luo stood at the entrance of the community for a while, then walked in a random direction. Not far behind her, as he watched her walk towards the outskirts, the man frowned. Shenqing Luo walked slowly along the roadside alone, unaware that she was heading towards the outskirts. Cars occasionally pass by on the road, and there are also some reckless young people driving motorcycles, roaring past. Feng Zhili drove his latest Maserati and drove arrogantly on every road. This is a limited edition that he has been selling well for a long time before being able to buy, so naturally he needs to show it off well. Along the way, anyone with some foresight who saw his luxury car cast envious and jealous glances. Feng Zhili was gazed upon by these gazes, and his heart was filled with joy. He was wandering in the endless and envious gaze when he accidentally caught a fleeting figure outside the car. He was taken aback for a moment. Isn't that Shenqing Luo? The speed slowly slowed down. Feng Zhili believed he wouldn't admit his mistake. After all, he and Shenqing Luo had been playing together since childhood. These days, he suddenly heard that she was not a child of the Shen family, and he was worried for a while. Unfortunately, she didn't know where she had gone. Upon careful consideration, he hadn't seen Shenqing Luo for quite some time. Maserati, who was granted the title of magistrate, stopped and waited for someone to approach. He is heartless, and he sympathizes with Shenqing Luo, who is just a playboy. After all, he passed by her in a car, and Shenqing Luo walked slowly, so Feng Zhili stopped the car and waited for about 10 minutes. Shenqing Luo saw the Maserati parked on the roadside from a distance, but she was indifferent. When passing by the car, she didn't even take a second glance. Feng Zhili, with the window open, leaned against the driver's seat and couldn't believe it as he watched Shenqing pass by without looking at him. As he watched her leave, he didn't have time to think much and shouted. Ching ching. Although Shenqing Luo heard a voice behind her, she didn't feel like she was calling herself, although that voice made her feel somewhat familiar. Watching Shenqing Luo not react after shouting, Feng Zhili became a bit angry. He started the car and slowly followed suit. The car was walking alongside Shenqing, and she only caught a glimpse of the owner who had this magical operation. It looks a bit familiar. Before Shenqing Luo remembered who he was, he heard him say, Shenqing Luo, didn't you hear me call you just now? How dare you ignore me? The somewhat aggrieved accusation immediately reminded Shenqing Luo of who this person was. No wonder he looks a bit familiar, this can be said to be the ashes of the original owner's friend. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Speculation. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 2 Speculation, Feng Zhili. Shenqing Luo used a questioning sentence, but even so, her tone remained unbelievably calm, and the questioning sentence was calmly turned into a statement by her. But in reality, she was not quite sure. After all, Feng Zhili was considered a friend of the original owner, but it was an existence that she did not know. Even though she had memories of the original owner, after being filtered by her and accepting those memories, Feng Zhili did not leave a deep impression on her. For her, not knowing each other was normal. But what was normal in her heart was very abnormal in Feng Zhili's eyes. What do you mean? I haven't seen you for a few days, so you don't know me anymore. Feng Zhili was very unhappy with her using questioning sentences, although they were actually just friends hanging out together in various entertainment venues such as bars and KTVs, and their actual life circle had no connection at all. But for him, at least he recognized her at a glance, and she looked at his unparalleled handsome face and questioned her. I can't bear it. This is absolutely unbearable. Feng Zhili felt angry in his heart, but even though he couldn't bear it, he still didn't say anything. Although he is generous in the eyes of his family, he still has a basic gentlemanly demeanor. After all, Shenqing Luo, this little girl, has been abandoned by the Shen family and looks very pitiful. That's right, in the eyes of Feng Zhili, Shenqing Luo walking alone on the road was a manifestation of being abandoned by the Shen family. He has also heard some of the recent rumors about the daughter holding the wrong position. He had to admit that although Shenqing Luo was his good friend, if he were a member of the Shen family or An family, and had to choose between Shenqing Luo, who was ignorant and only knew how to eat, drink, and play, and Moroa, who was widely known for his talent, there was no doubt that he would choose Moroa. The Shen family has always favored Shenqing Luo, which Feng Zhili has known for many years. However, in his view, this is simply because the Shen family only gave birth to Shenqing Luo, a girl. Now that Shenqing Luo is not of the Shen family bloodline and has no benefit to the family, it is natural for the Shen family to give up. As for Njia, Feng Zhili had heard of Njia's way of doing things, so he naturally wouldn't think that compared to the previous Mingzhu and Moroa, Njia would treat a daughter who was not promising much better. So at present, Feng Zhili, who claimed to cherish fragrance and jade, showed great pity towards Shenqing Luo. So he immediately greeted her. Where are you going? Get in the car. I'll give you a ride, young master. Feng Zhili waved his hand and spoke with great compassion towards Shenqing Luo. Shenqing felt relieved and didn't know where she was going, so she didn't refuse and got on the passenger seat. Where? Feng Zhili, adhering to the duty of a driver, asked. Shenqing Luo followed his memory and said a place, but didn't speak again. Feng Zhili looked at her tired expression, and a surge of passion for her friend came from her heart. If a friend is so disappointed, then he would naturally sacrifice his life to accompany a gentleman and end up drunk. Little did they know that Shenqing Luo closed her eyes and looked tired just because she felt unfamiliar with him in her heart and didn't want to talk to him. Biluo Bar, this is the most expensive bar in the entire Shangjing area. Here, if you casually meet someone, 90% of them will be a young master from a family in Shangjing. Here, there will be no common incidents of teasing or coercion, because the background of the Biluo Bar is strong, and no one dares to easily cause trouble here. Otherwise, they will have to bear the consequences of the bankruptcy of the family business. The bar where Shenqing Luo and Feng Zhili often gather is Biluo, and with their identities, they naturally have exclusive private rooms here. However, this exclusive private room can also be used by others when he and his wife are not around, as there are many people who usually gather together. Since Feng Zhili has not been to Biluo in the past few days, this private room is naturally used by people who often play together. When Shenqing Luo and Feng Zhili entered, there were sounds of inexplicable laughter inside. They stood at the door and happened to hear someone speaking. Shenqing Luo hasn't seen anyone for over half a month now, so he probably doesn't dare to see anyone anymore. If I were you, I wouldn't be too embarrassed to come out and meet people. After all, the legitimate daughter of the Shen family is the Miss Shen family. If Shenqing Luo hadn't relied on the Shen family before, we would have been willing to be with her. That's right, she's not the daughter of the Shen family anymore. Who would be willing to hold on to her stinky feet? Brotherly hasn't been here for several days, but as far as I heard, Brotherly hasn't brought Shenqing with him either. I really want to see Shenqing looking down and out, he must be very pitiful. Isn't that right? It's not the bloodline of the Shen family, and An family probably wouldn't recognize her either. What else can she make of herself? Ha ha ha, I really want to see Shenqing humbly bowing her head to please us. Tsk tisk, unfortunately, she hasn't appeared for a long time. You say, Shenqing Luo has disappeared for so long, shouldn't he have already been kicked out of the Shen family? I think so. Ha ha ha. Then let's go to the street tonight and take a look. Maybe we can still see Miss Shen, a beggar, on some street. Ha ha ha. Malicious words rushed into Feng Zhili's ears, igniting his anger. He stood at the door and looked at Shenqing Luo's calm face for a while laughter continued to reach his ears. Finally, he couldn't bear it anymore and lifted his foot to kick the door of the private room fiercely. The sudden sound made the laughter in the private room gradually subside. They followed the sound and looked towards the door, seeing Feng Zhili with a face full of anger and Shenqing Luo with a calm expression. Li Li Gu. Sister Shen. When seeing Shenqing Luo, the laughter ceased, and even the shouting was accompanied by fear. They dare to mock and ridicule Shenqing behind his back, but that doesn't mean they're not afraid of Shenqing's downfall. On the contrary, it was precisely because Shenqing Luo was too powerful in the past that they had always been submissive in front of her, so they would retaliate against her with the greatest malice when speculating about her downfall. But when faced with Shenqing Luo, no one dared to say anything more. After all, Shenqing Luo's strength is not a joke. But they were trembling and didn't wait for Shenqing Luo, who had always had a big temper, to get angry. Instead, Feng Zhili had a sinister expression on his face. Get lost. Feng Zhili suppressed the anger of hitting someone and let out a loud roar. A group of people who were originally chatting happily suddenly hurriedly packed up their things and scattered like birds and beasts. After everyone had left, he looked at Shenqing Luo with sincere apologies in his heart at this moment. I'm sorry, I didn't know this would happen. His original plan was to accompany Shenqing Luo to vent his frustration, but who knew he would hear such malicious words from these people. New book, thank you for your support. Favorite writing style, not fond of abuse, so it is a pet. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Aliens in Bars. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. In the bar, heterogeneous. The two of them didn't stay in this private room anymore, they went to the lobby of the bar. Shenqing Luo casually sat down in an empty corner of the bar, ordered a glass of wine, and his gaze fell on the stage of the bar, where he was indulging in extravagance. The passionate dance of men and women, the deafening passion of rock, and the relaxed and joyful faces of the people on stage were something that Shenqing Luo had never experienced or understood before. She is an outsider. In her original world, she had no interest in anything other than conducting research. Due to her high intelligence, things that others find difficult are not worth mentioning here. She doesn't have the youthful vigor of a young person, nor does she show great joy or anger. She is always so calm that people feel cold-blooded, and because of this, even the group of old researchers who work with her feel that she is too cold-blooded and unwilling to get too close to her. Excessive emotions can affect her ability to conduct research, so she has long learned to be calm. She withdrew her gaze, picked up the wine in front of her, and shook the glass in her hand. The light and colorful colors reflected magnificent colors in the cup, but Shenqing Luo's heart was empty. Taking a sip of the wine, the spicy taste immediately rushed into the nose. She frowned. This is her first time drinking alcohol. She's also visiting a place like a bar for the first time. After all, with her identity, bars, a place where fish and dragons are mixed, are unlikely to encounter accidents at any time. The country will not take risks with her. Nature prohibits her from entering places with high levels of danger and accidents. Feng Zhili, who sat next to Shenqing Luo, looked at her with a hint of surprise. How does it feel like Shenqing Luo has changed? I used to only drink beer, but now I dare to drink a strong cocktail. Still drinking so much elegance. Feng Zhili seemed to see the shadow of his own uncle. Are you feeling too stimulated? You can't make such a big move then. Feng Zhili looked at her with some concern. The person who originally only drank beer suddenly started drinking strong alcohol. If there were any problems with drinking, his guilt would be even greater. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Shenqing Luo, who had only taken one sip, put down his wine glass. Feng Zhili inexplicably breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Do you want to go into the dance floor and relax? Today, young master, I will spare no effort to accompany you and relax. He made a gesture of inviting her to dance. Shenqing Luo looked up at him. Under the light, the young man's sparkling eyes seemed to sparkle, dazzling and dazzling. Shenqing Luo suddenly smiled. The sudden curling of her lips made the inconspicuous tear stains at the corners of her eyes lively and bright, and her stunning face suddenly carried a smile, fading away the noise of the entire bar. At some moment, Feng Zhili felt as if his heartbeat had fallen. I never saw her smile so captivating before, did I? Watching Shenqing Luo's hand slowly touch his own, Feng Zhili had an illusion that he was undergoing some sacred ceremony. However, before the palms of the two of them touched each other, someone pushed away the crowd and pulled Shenqing Luo away from the bar. She fell into the arms of a man unexpectedly, and could still smell the faint fragrance of soapberry on his body through her nose, inexplicably giving her a sense of peace of mind. Even if she didn't see her face, Shenqing Luo's memory quickly identified the person. Shenqing Li, the eldest son of the Shen family, and the elder brother of Shenqing Luo. Brother Shen. Upon seeing Shenqing Li, Feng Zhili immediately felt that he was not doing well. He looked around, afraid that his uncle would also appear so suddenly. He promised his uncle not to step into places like bars for a month after buying a car. If I meet my uncle at the bar at this time, his newly purchased car will be taken back. It will be difficult to buy a car in the future. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Punishment Recognition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Punishment Recognition. Shenqing Luo broke free from Shenqing Li's embrace and called out softly, "Big brother." Shenqing Li clenched her wrist with little strength, but it made it impossible for her to break free. Follow me home. His deep voice carried a hint of deliberate tenderness, as if afraid that his tone would be too harsh and hurt her, so his deliberate tenderness sounded dry and somewhat stiff. Inexplicably, with such a feeling, Shenqing Luo felt a trace of something in her heart, which made her feel a bit melancholy. She whispered, "Okay." Then he let him pull himself out of the bar. Shen family. The majestic parents sat at the desk in the study, watching the silent Shenqing Luo with a stern gaze and a hint of aggressive accountability. You have great potential. If you don't answer the phone or return messages, you won't be able to return home either. Mr. Shen has been in the military for his entire life. He has always loved this granddaughter of Shenqing Luo the most, but he also worries the most about her. There has been no news of Shenqing Luo for half a month, and he almost couldn't catch his breath. Thanks to their foresight, they arranged for someone to watch over her in places where she used to frequently appear, and only waited for her to bring back the person as soon as she received any news. Shenqing lowered her gaze and remained silent. She doesn't know how to face the family of the original owner yet. In fact, it's not the original owner who went missing, but herself. She has never experienced the feeling of being cared for, nor the feelings of being cared for or being cared for. The emotions that ordinary people often experience are very rare for her. So she could only analyze rationally based on the clues she had in her memory. She thought that without blood ties, Shen Qingluo should not be worth caring about for the Shen family. But I can't understand why this is the case. Shen Qing's eyes drooped with confusion. But in the eyes of Mr. Shen, the parent of the Shen family, it was her stubborn temper that was once again erupting. This child has always had a sensitive mind. After realizing that she was not the child of the second child, she went to the tip of an ox's horn and was always afraid that the Shen family would not want her. In the eyes of the Shen family, where would they not know that Shen Qingluo is sensitive and insecure? However, they did not expect that Shen Qingcheng would provoke Shen Qingluo with malicious intent. They thought that if they didn't replace the child, over time Shen Qingluo would understand that the Shen family wouldn't want her. It's just an overestimation of Shen Qingluo's psychological resilience. Now that they have returned to the Shen family, it is no longer the one who spoils and worries them, but the one who has changed her heart and is from another world. It's okay. The old man sighed and waved his hand. You've grown up, Grandpa can't control you anymore. A heavy sigh fell on Shen Qingluo's heart, making her feel a bit muffled. Although she doesn't understand what family affection really looks like, her character of respecting the elderly and loving the young makes her unable to see the elderly because of her low self-esteem. She spoke softly, "I'm sorry," accompanied by a wholehearted bow. The old man's gaze paused, looking at her with a deep darkness. He closed his eyes and spoke. "Since you've made a mistake, go kneel in the ancestral hall." Shen Qing responded with a nod and withdrew. Throughout, there was no questioning of the old man's decision. Leave the old man in the study, close his eyes, and conceal the heavy emotions in his eyes. Shen Qingluo, who came out of the study, was immediately surrounded by a group of people. "Qingqing, are you okay? Why is your face so bad? Did the old man scold you? My dear, look at this skinny little face. Have you been suffering outside? Has Qing'er eaten yet? I have instructed the kitchen to make up for it for you. Qing'er hasn't been home for a long time. I thought Qing'er didn't want us anymore." Accompanied by the sound of whispers of warmth and coldness, Shen Qingluo felt somewhat at a loss. But she still didn't forget the old man's words. "I'm fine." She spoke softly. A voice that tried to be gentle, with an unbelievably light tone, but still couldn't ignore the coldness and estrangement. So listening to her voice, all the people who were originally seeking warmth and comfort stopped. They looked at her with some strangeness. Shen Qingluo didn't pay attention to the changes in their expressions and continued, "I went to the temple." This statement immediately pulled everyone's thoughts back. Shen Qingluo's aunt spoke up, "Qingqing, what ancestral hall are you going to? You just came back, let's go eat first." Yes, Qingqing, look at how thin this little face has become. We still need to make up for it properly. It should be said that Shen Qingluo's mother's home, the Bai family, rushed to see her second aunt upon hearing the sound. Shen Qingluo shook his head. The family law cannot be abolished. My grandfather punished me by kneeling in the ancestral hall, and I deserve to be punished. After she finished speaking, she headed towards the direction of the ancestral hall. A group of people looked at each other, feeling strange but puzzled. After all, where did Shen Qingluo kneel in the ancestral hall? Not to mention kneeling in the ancestral hall, even other punishments have not been received. The so-called family rules are followed by the entire Shen family, but when it comes to Shen Qingluo, that is an exception. Even if the old man became angry and wanted to punish her, it was always just verbal. It used to be true that the old man punished her by kneeling in the ancestral hall, but she turned around and left the Shen family mansion without going to be punished, and the old man never said anything. It's good not to say you've accepted the punishment obediently, but to not get angry in the opposite direction. So now, watching Shen Qingluo obediently walking towards the ancestral hall, they all felt very strange. When Shen Qing fell into the ancestral hall, there was a person standing at the door, seemingly waiting for her. Shen Qingluo walked over and saw the person, calmly passing by in his heart. Oh, so it's him. Shen Qingqing. This is probably the person with the deepest memory of Shen Qingluo after reading. Because it was this person who appeared in the recent memories of the original owner, and it can also be considered this person, indirectly leading to her arrival. But that's all for now. If there is any resentment or desire to please this person, it is not at all. So Shen Qingluo just stood calmly in front of him, waiting for him to speak. He also lived up to his expectations and said what Shen Qingluo had expected. Shen Qingluo, you really are. Dogs can't change how they eat shit. The esteemed second young master of the Shen family spoke freely for the first time, and surprisingly, it was his younger sister who had lived together for 17 years. It is obvious how much Shen Qingqing dislikes Shen Qingluo. I thought you would at least have a little bit of self-awareness. That way, you wouldn't end up in an embarrassing situation. This is also a piece of advice based on our 17-year relationship with the Shen family. Unfortunately, you're too shameless. You have been occupying my sister's position for 17 years, yet you still want to shamelessly continue holding on to the Shen family. You should disappear forever and let my sister come back. Part-time writer, so the update time is uncertain. This book does not abandon pitfalls. I guarantee there will be a change during busy times. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Brother. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Brother. Shen Qingluo listened silently to Shen Qingqing's condemnation and almost vicious curses. Have you finished speaking? She spoke calmly and asked. What? Shen Qingqing hesitated for a moment when asked calmly by her. If you're done speaking, please make way. I'm going to kneel at the ancestral hall. She was very calm, completely devoid of the pain and anger that had been stimulated before. She only faced him with a calm and aloof attitude, facing his older brother who had been the same father and mother for the past 17 years but now spoke ill of her. In the past, Shen Qing fell into hysteria simply because he cared. But she is different. She doesn't care or even know Shen Qingqing. How could she be hurt by his attitude? Faced with strangers, she treated them equally with indifference. Shen Qingluo walked into the ancestral hall and knelt down on the cattail in peace. The old man didn't say how long he would kneel, and she didn't comment on the old man's decision. For her, it has always been a principle that if she does something wrong, she must bear the consequences. She is mentally sorting out today's events. She is not a fool. With her original memories, she knows how she should approach the Shen family. However, she has changed so much today, and the attitude that the old man had hidden expectations has emerged in her mind. In the end, it has turned into a helpless sigh of compromise. Shen Qingluo knew that nothing could go back. She is not Shen Qingluo, she is not qualified to enjoy the favor that belongs to that girl. She never thought about replacing that girl's identity. Although her arrival had become a reality, completely replacing her existence was impossible for Shen Qingluo to do. She doesn't expect family affection, so naturally she's not afraid of losing her identity after being discovered. The girl carries a serene aura, and from behind, one cannot ignore her sense of meaninglessness and indifference. Shen Qingqing saw her straight back through a little light in the doorway, pursed his lips, and turned to leave. After he left, another person pushed open the door of the ancestral hall and stood behind Shen Qingluo. Shen Qingluo could feel someone standing behind her, but she didn't know who it was. She has not yet become familiar with the Shen family to the point where she can recognize them as soon as she gets close. So she turned her body slightly and looked up. The man's figure was blurred in the mottled light and shadow, but his fierce aura could still be seen. He looked at her from a high position, with an intimidating look in his eyes. Shen Qingluo called out to him, "Big brother." In the Shen family, she has a total of 5 brothers. Except for Shen Qingqing, who is his own, everything else was done by his uncle. At the beginning, each of them held her in their palms. Later, for some reasons, Shen Qingqing began to dislike her. But the other brothers still doted on her because she was the younger sister, the only sister connected by blood. But now, it's not my sister anymore. She is not the only sister with blood connections anymore. When the reason for favoritism no longer exists, love naturally diminishes, and even, like Shen Qingqing, turns all the guilt towards his true biological sister into hatred towards Shen Qingluo, who occupies the magpie's nest. In the past 17 years, I have been vulnerable to blood ties. Shen Qingluo only showed some pity towards the original owner and did not blame anyone. The love of the Shen family towards the original owner stems from blood ties and connects with time. But when the initial reason no longer exists, everything that follows is wrong and understandable. At least, Shen Qingluo himself can understand. Shen Qingli heard Shen Qing let out a "big brother" and breathed slowly. "I thought you didn't want to call me brother anymore." Her changes were too obvious, and Shen Qing was skeptical but unwilling to believe them. Listening to her call out, "big brother," for some reason, he, who has never been emotional, felt a bit sour in his heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Rare and Bustling Ancestral Halls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Rare and Bustling Ancestral Halls, how could that be? Shen Qingluo asked calmly in his tone. You are the eldest brother. Before the Shen family no longer recognizes me, I was still the daughter of the Shen family. Upon hearing these words, Shen Qingli couldn't describe the feeling in his heart. How could she calmly and objectively sort out the relationship between her and the Shen family? Has it reached this point yet? Has she lost any hope for the Shen family? Waiting to be abandoned? Has she become so desperate in her heart? Shen Qingli felt heartbroken. Your second brother just couldn't figure it out for a moment. He explained. But seeing Shen Qing turn his back to him, he shook his head. I don't blame him. This is probably the best ending. Shen Qingluo spoke calmly. I can understand. Just like a math problem that requires careful calculation by Zhou Yan to come up with the final answer, regardless of whether the answer is correct or not, if there is an error in the problem itself, the meaning of the answer is meaningless for the problem itself. The same applies to my second brother. Shen Qingli felt heartbroken as he listened. When he was a child, it was best for a mistress to treat his younger sister. If someone snatched his own sister, he would have to deal with anyone in a hurry. But later on, the waiter grew up and for some reason, he strongly rejected the existence of Qing'er. And when he found out that Qing'er was not the flesh and blood of the Shen family, it was also the waiter's biggest reaction. How simple it is to change from love to hate. How difficult is it to hate someone who goes deep into the bone marrow? What's wrong with Qing'er? Being held wrong is not her fault, being spoiled in the Shen family is not her sole responsibility. Why should she bear all the blame as a child? The waiter didn't understand and just blamed Qing'er. Will he be happy if he really loses Qing'er, the younger sister? Shen Qingli's gaze was dim. Shen Qingluo did not continue to speak. She knelt on the cattail, looking from her back with devout devotion. Shen Qingli looked silently at his sister who seemed to have changed. In the end, he didn't say anything and left the temple. However, today the ancestral hall of the Shen family was particularly lively because Shen Qingluo was punished. Not long after Shen Qingli left, someone arrived again. Shen Qing remained motionless and knelt in front of the ancestral tablet of the Shen family, showing no concern for who the visitors were. Qing'er. Someone called out with a gentle and inclusive voice. Shen Qing's back stiffened and he felt a bit helpless. This person, relying solely on her voice, stirred waves in her heart as she was accustomed to being emotionless. That's not her mood. It's the emotions of the original owner. The person who came was Shen Qingluo's mother, who had been mistaken for 17 years and called her mother for 17 years. I don't know how to face it. Shen Qingluo was overwhelmed by the surging emotions in his heart, and Bai Tang could feel her panic as he looked at her back. Is Qing'er angry with mommy? Bai Tang is originally a gentle woman, and when her tone deliberately carries a pitiful taste, it appears particularly aggrieved. But Shen Qingluo never turned back. She doesn't know how to handle this kind of emotion. The emotions left behind from the original body are not only a deep mother-daughter affection for Bai Tang, but also a strong sense of guilt and pain, as well as a fear of being abandoned. Especially Shen Qingcheng once said such a thing. In the original mind of Shen Qingluo, Shen Qingcheng is the biological son of mommy, and she is not mommy's biological daughter. His brother despises him for occupying the magpie's nest. Can mommy also think the same way? She also knew about Enmoroa because she heard only her kind words, and almost no adult didn't like Enmoroa. My biological daughter is so excellent, and this child who was held wrong is so bad. How could mommy still want her? 10,000 words, scatter flowers, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. Termination of Marriage Contract. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Termination of Marriage Contract. Shen Qingluo's eyebrows furrowed as he was disturbed by the remaining emotions from his original body. She is very troubled because she has not dealt with this deeply emotional relationship. In her past life, she never had to worry about interpersonal relationships because she had no family or friends. She only needed to do her job well. As a respected person, her image as a genius scientist would never collapse. But Shen Qingluo is very clever. She can solve things that are difficult to reason with emotions, and with logic and reason. Mommy, I won't be angry with you. Shen Qingluo's tone was flat, as if he was explaining a truth to a stranger, without any emotions or waves. Bai Tang's heart was astringent. Qing'er still hurt her heart. Okay, Qing'er is not angry. But since she's not angry, let's go back and rest well. Isn't Qing'er the least fond of the temple? Bai Tang forced a smile to shift the topic. Shen Qing fell silent for a moment. The ancestral hall is gloomy and cold, and mommy's health is not good. Let's go back first. Grandpa and I are angry, so we won't suffer ourselves. Her tone was as gentle as possible, but Bai Tang, who was familiar with her, listened to her rather unfamiliar tone and her eyes lit up. She restrained the urge to cry and spoke with a gentle smile. Okay, Qing'er, don't kneel for too long. Your grandfather won't blame you. Mommy, let's go back first. Bai Tang stood and waited for a while, still eager for Shen Qingluo to say something more, but in the end, he still didn't wait and could only turn around and leave in disappointment. The breath behind him was no longer there, and Shen Qing knelt down, feeling his face wet after realizing it. She cried. Shen family front hall. Not long after Shen Qingluo knelt down at the ancestral hall, a guest from the Shen family came to his door. This guest is not just coming to drink tea. Old man, as you know, the marriage agreement between our two families is for Bai Tang's daughter and my family's Fu Yan. Now, Qingluo's identity is really awkward. Besides, Fu Yan has always treated Qingluo like a younger sister. Now that they have grown up, they haven't had any romantic relationships. I think the two children's marriage agreement should be abandoned. Today, the couple who came to our door were Fu Ming and Zhao Wanqing, the eldest son of the Fu family who had a close relationship with the Shen family. The couple came to terminate their engagement today. And it was Zhao Wanqing who spoke. Mr. Shen was so angry when he heard this grandiose reason. But he can still hold on. It's not impossible to terminate the engagement. However, have you asked Fu Yan about his thoughts on this matter? The old man has been watching Fu Yan grow up for so many years, and he believes that his judgment on people is not wrong. Fu Yan, that child is a good person. He originally thought that even if that child had no romantic relationship with Qing'er, they would not treat his family's Qing'er unfairly in the future. After he left in 100 years, Qing'er would not be wronged. Well. Old man, look at what you're saying. I naturally asked Ian about this matter. Don't worry, even if these two children can't pair up, we, Ian, still treat Qing Luo as our younger sister. Zhao Wanqing still doesn't want to offend the Shen family. In her private heart, she actually feels that the Shen family's biological daughter, Anmoroa, is worthy of her own son. Now that I come to my door to terminate my engagement, it's just my engagement with Shen Qing. As for the future, the Shen family will recognize Anmoroa again, and this engagement can still be continued. Mr. Shen has lived for so many years, how could he not see her little bit of caution? Although he felt uncomfortable in his heart, seeing Zhao Wanqing's petty demeanor, he thought to himself that Fu Yan had such a mother. In the future, if Qing are married, he might not be able to get any further treatment. It's good if the engagement is cancelled. Anyway, Qing doesn't have that kid Fu Yan in her heart. Since Fu Yan has also agreed, let's drop the engagement between the two families. Mr. Shen thought to himself that in the future, finding a partner for Qing would depend not only on how that person is, but also on how his family members are. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be at ease. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Old Man's Sorrow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Old Man's Sorrow. Zhao Wanqing also didn't notice that Mr. Shen was talking about terminating the engagement between the two families, not just the engagement between Qing Luo and Fu Yan. Listening to the old man's agreement to terminate the engagement, she was extremely happy, and a happy expression appeared on her face. Fu Ming looked at his wife so smug that he tugged at her hem. Zhao Wanqing reacted and looked at Mr. Shen's dark face, smiling awkwardly. The old man naturally won't argue with her. The thoughts of the Fu family are all on the table, and those with brains can see their plans. In the past, the Fu family was led by Mr. Fu, but interests were not as paramount. But now, all eyes are filled with benefits. Now, being able to personally come and pretend to be a victim can be seen as maintaining the past bond between the two families. But this love affair, the old man no longer admires it. After the old man of the Fu family went, the Fu family became a mess. Among the younger generation, except for one Fu Yan who can hold on, the rest are all messengers. The old man had high hopes for Fu Yan and wanted to entrust his beloved granddaughter to him. However, now that the Fu family has stepped on his granddaughter's face, Mr. Shen's high hopes for Fu Yan and his meager past relationship with him cannot offset the injustice they have caused his obedient granddaughter. Don't like his granddaughter. It seems rare. Mr. Shen remained steady throughout his life, but as he grew older, he often secretly worried about his granddaughter's affairs. Especially at this moment, Fu Ming and his wife had already left for a long time, and the old man was gasping for breath, unable to speak. He felt both hate and pain in his heart. Although he didn't pay attention to what was going on outside, there were still some things that entered his ears. In the past, outsiders often said that those so-called Qing Luo was rampant, ignorant, and reckless, insulting the Shen family. The old man himself knew the character of his granddaughter, so he just laughed at these things. But now, everyone knows that Qing Luo and Anmoroa were held in the wrong arms. Comparing the two, everyone sympathizes with Anmoroa for not being able to grow up with her biological parents due to their mistakes at birth. They are all cursing Qing Luo for occupying the magpie's nest, and everyone wants to throw a bucket of dirty water on Qing Luo's head. Even Qing Luo, who falls for herself, is on the wrong side and self-destructive. The old man was helpless. He couldn't just laugh it off, because at such times, any flaw in Qing Luo's body would be magnified. Words can be as hurtful as swords. But his son, how innocent he is. The old man feels sorry for his granddaughter who was raised by his own hands. Although that girl was spoiled a bit by him, her temperament wouldn't be crooked. The indiscriminate accusations from the outside world are so heinous. Even the child of Qingqing can speak ill of his sister. The old man's heart sank. He is old, but with his protection, he still cannot protect his beloved children from being safe and happy. The matter of Fu Yan terminating his engagement with Shen Qingluo quickly became known to everyone in the family with the intention of the Fu family. Upon hearing this news, there were those who watched with cold eyes, those who mocked and satirized, and those who believed that Fu Yan was wise. Among them, there were also people who were dissatisfied with Shen Qing. The young master of the Feng family, Feng Zhili, heard a wealthy second-generation belittling Shen Qingluo and even started to get involved with others. Alarmed the two families. This news also reached the Shen family. Mr. Shen was originally quite happy to hear that someone had taken action against his granddaughter to protect her, but when he found out that this person was Feng Zhili, he lost his mind. Feng Zhili, this kid. No. This kid is unreliable. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Untamed Nephew. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Untamed Nephew. The news of Feng Zhili taking action on behalf of Shen Qing has also reached the ears of the parties involved. When Aunt came to test her feelings for Feng Zhili with a complex expression on her face, Shen Qingluo was only surprised. In her mind, violence is the least desirable means of solving problems. Using violence to stop a few words of slander for others is even more of a last resort. So, on the one hand, she was surprised by Feng Zhili's foolishness to the point where he would take action with just a few words from others, and on the other hand, she was also surprised by his maintenance of herself. He got into a fight. Why? Because others scolded me. She doesn't understand. Rationally, she couldn't analyze the significance of Feng Zhili's behavior. Emotionally, she doesn't understand this kind of emotion. There is clearly no kinship between them. There is no involvement of interests. She was slandered by words, and her image was also defamed. She didn't care about these things, but why did he feel angry? Shen Qing lowered her head, her eyes filled with confusion and contemplation. Qin Yunjing looked at her little niece hanging her head and immediately spoke to comfort her. Don't be sad, Qingqing. It's their fault for outsiders to say anything. If Qingqing is good, we can know it ourselves. That kid from the Feng family has already taught them a lesson, and no one will argue recklessly in the future. She thought that Shen Qingluo was feeling sad about what the outside world was discussing about her. I hate those who only know how to catch shadows in my heart, but I have a rare appreciation for Feng Zhili, a playboy who only knows how to play. But for Fu Yan, who withdrew from Shen Qing's engagement, he felt resistant in his heart. If it weren't for Fu Yan's intention to terminate the engagement, this matter wouldn't have escalated like this. After all the rumors passed down by others before will gradually subside under the Shen family's attitude of Shen Qingluo will always be the daughter of the Shen family. But the engagement between Shen Qingluo and Fu Yan since childhood has been terminated, which reflects the plummeting status of Shen Qingluo in the Shen family. Especially, the rumor is still about the engagement between Fu Yan and Shen Qing, rather than the engagement between the Shen family and the Fu family. I changed a few words, but it gave others a different feeling. Especially under the psychological influence of everyone expecting the Shen family to take back Morua, the fact that Shen Qingluo was abandoned by the Shen family has almost become a predetermined fact in the hearts of others. So any jumping clown would rush up and step on Shen Qing. To be able to see the princess fall from the clouds, becoming a less powerful presence than them, such malice is enough to make them join in without seeking any reward. In a world where people follow the crowd, gossip is a sharp weapon that hurts people. Qin Yinjing knew this for a long time. He used to just watch coldly, but now he feels hateful. Shen Qingluo did not feel as sad as his aunt had said. She doesn't care at all about what others say. She was simply strange, Feng Zhili, because of the reason for her fight. If you don't understand, ask. So she asked. So she saw her aunt's eyes becoming more complicated as she looked at her. He hesitates to speak. But still answered her. Because he treats you like a good friend. Shen Qing nodded. Oh. Qin Yunjing looked at her seemingly innocent niece and felt very complicated in her heart. Her original intention was to know what the young man from the Feng family was thinking about her family's Qing. My friend is fine. If there is a romantic relationship between a man and a woman, what does Qingqing think? Alright now, even if Feng Zhili didn't act out of kindness towards Qing Qing because of his friends, he couldn't have acted out of love between a man and a woman. Her family's courtiers are not yet enlightened. Qingqing is not enlightened yet, waiting. The person who will soon enlighten her is about to come out. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Another person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Another person settled down. Amidst the rumors circulating outside, the other party involved, Anmoroa, was anxiously scratching her ears and cheeks in her room, preparing for her upcoming piano concert. As a talented woman praised by many children of aristocratic families, Anmoroa naturally has true abilities. Although there has been some praise from the outside world, Anmoroa herself is still worthy of the name of a talented woman. Just that's the previous Anmoroa. Nowadays, the talented woman herself has already changed her mind. She has no idea how to play the piano. Don't say you know how to play. In her era, there wasn't even a piano. She was originally training a fierce BMW in the camp as a tribute from the border country. Unexpectedly, the horse had a broken hoof, and her mind was dizzy. In her reaction, she became this seemingly gentle and elegant, but actually high-spirited and proud young lady who was only well-known. She was born into a noble family and has been living in the military camp with her father and brother since childhood. Although she can read and study, she has no interest in the talents of other women in the brothel. Playing with knives and guns is her hobby, and killing enemies on the battlefield is her life pursuit. Suddenly, she became this young lady. Although she has memories of playing the piano, she has a brain that knows how to use her hands. This thing, even if there is memory, is no different from a heavenly book to her. Anmoroa looked at the days of the concert outlined on the calendar and felt very worried. So, the person involved in Anjia is still worried about himself at the moment. Speaking of which, the servants who settled down have also been curious lately. Why do you think the young lady is always using the piano to vent her anger? The sharp and rhythmic sound of tapping on the piano keyboard scared them. In the eyes of the servants of an family, the young lady is a gentle, generous, and kind girl. They have almost never seen their own young lady lose her composure, so for Anmoroa's recent piano practice, she can only assume that she suddenly realized that she is not an family's daughter and has been greatly stimulated. How could one imagine that this abnormality was actually due to a different soul? On the other hand, Anmoroa's parents are also quite concerned about her recent state of being in a bad state. Husband, we really made a mistake. Anmoroa's mother, Duan Ping, is a strong woman in the workplace. She has always been accustomed to a tense face, but at this moment, there is a hint of regret and sorrow on her face. The man sitting next to her, her husband in Qingyang, also showed a helpless expression on his resolute and solemn face. I don't know how to answer my wife's question. But he didn't answer, and the answer was already in their hearts. Unlike the indulgence of the Shen family towards Shen Qingluo's personality, the cultivation of Anmoroa by the An family's parents began from a young age. They certainly do not demand that Anmoroa excels in everything, but they demand that she cannot be ignored by others. In her limited energy, they demanded that she must have the ability to handle things. Not seeking first, but must go upstream. This is the idea that An's parents instilled in Anmoroa from a young age. How could a young and energetic child not be allowed to embark on a path of competitiveness by instilling such a striving for excellence from a young age? So, Anmoroa's temperament gradually became somewhat extreme. If you can't do your best, you'll become increasingly frustrated. But while maintaining a gentle and generous image, some emotions can only be suppressed and gradually become more and more extreme. This extreme is reflected in her repeated demands for perfection in something. Due to external image limitations, she cannot let others see her other side, so the other side becomes targeted at herself. Duan Ping and An Qingyang, seeing it, also reflected and regretted the way they educated their daughter. But what can we do then? The consequences have already been brewing, and even if they feel heartbroken, they must bear them. The sudden revelation that the Shen family and their family were holding the wrong child was unexpected. Although they have always known that Anmo was not their biological flesh and blood. When they first learned about this, they also put in a lot of effort to find it. But because they had been searching for several years without any news, they were no longer hopeful in their hearts. Due to physical reasons, Duan Ping is not suitable for regeneration, so Anmoroa is their only child. When all love and expectations are placed on a child, Duan Ping and An Qingyang, who have only been parents once in their lives, have taught their daughter excellently and everyone praises her, but they have also destroyed many things. It is their own education that has led to the current results, and they are willing to bear everything. So even though they knew that Shenqing Luo was their biological daughter, they remained silent in the face of the truth. 17 years have passed, and their biological daughter has been living very well in the Shen family. They also feel guilty about their adopted daughter. Do they have to show an eagerness to replace their daughter as soon as they know the truth? Where did this place their daughter who had been raised for 17 years? Moreover, before they knew the truth, they knew that their daughter was both envious and jealous of that girl from the Shen family. Outsiders praised Anmoroa from the An family, and only Anmoroa herself knew that behind her life, which others praised, was her sweat and collapse. How did she know that this was what she wanted? How did she know that she envied Shenqing, who was reckless, ignorant, and could be favored by the Bai family of the Shen family? Duan Ping and An Qingyang know their daughter well, so they never proactively suggest sending her back to the Shen family or bringing Shenqing Luo back to the An family. Anmoroa has an extreme personality. If they take the initiative to say they want to exchange the two, she will have a twisted mind and go to the extreme. So after realizing that Anmoroa's personality was a bit extreme, An's parents were always cautious and didn't dare to force her anymore. I dare not say much, even though I haven't heard a piano piece tuned by Anmoroa recently. Only when she is venting. I still thought to myself, just vent it out, otherwise I would be suffocated and even more afraid that she might think too much and think crookedly. Little did they know that tunes that were not in tune were all due to the fact that the person was no longer the same. Poor Anmoroa, she is seriously studying the piano. Although she never learned it. In my impression, her cheap parents, oh no, are very strict with her. If her level drops, it can be said that her emotions have been affected. But if she goes from being proficient to being completely ignorant, she will be in danger. She's a soul that doesn't know where it comes from, occupying her daughter's body, so she shouldn't be sent for research. If we really sent her to study, it would be great if she could go back to her world. But if she can't go back, wouldn't it be a waste of her life? A person who knows current affairs is a hero, and Anmoroa feels that she still needs to pretend to be the lady of the original owner's prestigious family. This is not to disappoint oneself for coming to this foreign world. If we can still go back in the future, maybe we can still talk to our brothers in the army. Now, as long as it comes, let it be. I was originally planning to write a troublemaker as a supporting actress, but I decided to go the other way. I hope you like it. End of this chapter.